Hello everyone, it's Helen from Journaling Planet, and this is part 2 of my video where I make ephemera from a beer box. In the last video, in case you missed it, I created these. I did sew a button on here, but it did not survive the sewing process. I think the vibrations were just enough to completely unlock the glue that I'd used, which was fabric glue, and I think hot glue would have kept it in place better, but I've learnt my lesson about putting buttons down before I sew. But hopefully you can see there's just a little bit of sewing going on around that. I just quickly embellished that. So that's one that very much has the branding intact from the beer box. This you can see from the back, because this would be glued down, is just part of the beer packaging, but you wouldn't know it because it's all been covered up. I've just put some little bits of ephemera into the tuck in this little fold out folder, I guess, and it's very cute, very cute. Though you may notice I have embellished a little bit. I've put some stamping on the bottom here because I can never resist it. I've also put some little bits of kind of ephemera, just little embellishments around the edge here. The only reason I did this was that I glued this side of the map upside down, and so I covered up the biggest lettering, like this kind of lettering here was upside down on this side, so I just covered that up. Most things in paper crafts you can cover up. I just put a few pieces of paper in to show how the tuck works, and that's looking pretty nice. So I've still got a few little bits and pieces left. I'm going to make some tags because we all love tags. I'm going to make 3 cute little tags, and I'm going to make I'm not going to manage to use the whole thing exactly, but I'm going to make some tabs for the top of kind of reference cards or specimen cards. So I'm probably going to start with this because I only need to cover one side because the other side is a really lovely brown. So it'll be a really quick make. And what I'm going to do to begin with though is I'm going to cover this whole of this side in glue and scrapbook paper, whichever scrapbook paper happens to come to hand. Then I'm just going to trim it down, and that will be my first make. Done, dusted. That's it. No messing. I really don't want this video to be as long as the last one was. I do get very carried away with whenever collage is involved, you know I'm in trouble, because I will definitely, that's not quite long enough. That's not quite long enough. Oh dear. This one's long enough. Now, which bit? I'll do proper map, I think. We'll go for proper map pieces. Just hold that down. I only need this on one side. Yeah, if I get into collaging, you know that I'm going to be there for the rest of time. And thankfully, you are all very kind about how long I take with these kind of tasks. Because I know for myself, it does help me watch other people collage. So I can see how their mind sort of works through the process, which is really great. It gives me ideas for future collages that I might do. Believe it or not, it helps me speed up my collage. You wouldn't think that by watching these videos, I know. But I used to be even slower. I'm going to try and even this out where the cutter hasn't quite got it even. Lovely. And then let's just trim that side. So now I have this lovely map covered tab, or I'm going to have 2 tabs. So it doesn't really matter, it doesn't have to be exact. I'm just going to take one side, I'm going to trim that way. So we have a little tab like that on one side, brown on the other. And then I'm going to take this one and just basically cut a little triangle out of it, like that. So I've only wasted a tiny little bit, and that will go into a pile of papers that I give away to local artists So there we go, 2 tabs done, dusted. They'll go on the top of some specimen cards at some point. I won't need to make them fresh. Okay, let's get some cutting done on these tags. Probably I should cut first so I don't waste scrapbook paper. So here goes. I'm thinking there. It's a little bit big. That's why you need to do that trick where you make it even at each side. And then just a tiny bit off the bottom. You know, where you cut one side and then you use it as a template for the other side. Cut that a bit straighter. Or attempt to. Yeah, you know, I actually really like how these look. So I don't know what I'm going to do with these. I might not do quite as much embellishing of them as I first thought. At least not with collage. I kind of like the way they look. Okay, hardly perfect, but good enough. All right, let's get rid of all these little bits and pieces. So I've already got my tabs made. They can go in the finished pile. And maybe I'll round the corners at the top of those at some point, but certainly not now. And let me have a look at these. What am I going to do with you? I don't want to go overboard because I kind of like the way you look right now. So let's have a little play. Because I could always ink this up a little bit in order to create something that's a little bit vintage. Not sure about that. Maybe a bit of, hang on, let me work with the colours. So it's kind of orange tone. So I do need to go to my blues again. Where's that scrap paper? This is just a piece of wallpaper that I got on a free sample. Let's have a bit more of this and see what's what. I do think this works really well with these colours. I could possibly just use this across all 3. Maybe if I just tear the top off that a little bit, even better. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to commit to that, I think. Just put that there for now. Fairly sure that this one will just be done if I put a piece of this down. Just a tiny embellishment on top probably to, yeah, I like how that works. The biggest challenge is this one that's got more space on it. Just wonder if I get a bigger piece, or a slightly wider piece of this, if it will work better. Yeah, I do like how that looks, and it wouldn't need much in terms of embellishments afterwards. So I think I'm going to keep it on the theme that I used before. So let me start with this slightly wider one, and I'll come back to those other ones in a bit. Oh yeah, I love those, and I love that they're kind of matching. I have even gotten into putting on kind of material or lace at the top yet, or string. So okay, that will come later. First of all, let me take a look at the people I have, see if any of them are going to fit on these tags. I'm just going to pull a few out, because otherwise all you'll be able to hear is me rustling around. And that's just, you know, that's just boring, listening to me rustling around. This guy is kind of big. I don't think he fits, does he? It's kind of weird. Don't think that's really... She's cool, but she would need some more fussy cutting. That's not a very close cut that I did there. That looks all right. I would lose a lot of the detail at the bottom, but that's a possibility for sure. What else we got? Oh, who else we got? Okay, after more fussing than I really could bear to let you sit through, I have found some Egyptian images from a book in my stash, and I have done some ripping. I think that they're going to end up all sitting on the blue part, but before I do anything else, I'm just going to put some distress ink over the white edges and a little bit on the photos. So just kind of give them that look of them sitting in a drawer, which I think actually they did for a long time before I put them into my stash and finally decided to cannibalize the book. I don't remember the name of the book, I'm afraid. It was one of those things that I was either going to have to send it to the thrift store because I had read it a long time ago and wasn't going to read it again, or I was going to have to cannibalize it. And I just love how distress ink makes any photo pop. What I don't love is how it makes my camera shake when I'm doing this. Sorry. And we'll just get that all smudged up nicely. And then we'll do a little bit more on this one. So I have cut a great deal of my indecision over this because honestly, you should have seen the number of things. I just decided to show you a little bit of my working out, and then you've seen where I've ended up. I don't think you should have to go through that just for a tutorial. So I'm just moving these onto place. I love how these look though. And part of the reason that I decided to save them is because I just thought it would give anything like this that I did such a different look to the other things you see in junk journals. So a little tip for you there, it is worth saving things from historical books and magazines if you're wanting to give your junk journals a little bit of a different look to those you normally see. And glue that down there. Probably not going to do any sewing on these ones. I think we'll just leave the wonderful images to speak for themselves. I'm not going to sew, but I will round the edges just to give it a little bit more of a professional look. So let's have a quick look at this. Go to the side. There we go. Oh, come on, cooperate. I've only just sharpened you because it's quite thick paper. Lovely. So all that remains is to punch a hole in those, which I will do. First of all, I'm just going to clear up my workstation a little bit. Okay, I can actually see what I'm doing now. So I've decided that I'm going to put some little loops on the top that are just paper, and I'm just going to secure them with glue. Probably tacky glue if I can get my tacky glue working. It's been a bit touch and go, and that I think is just going to set that off beautifully. So let me quickly do that. I'm going to need to redecant this glue into something else because it is not having it. But these are starting to look beautiful. And it's a reminder that you do not need ribbon to create a tag. A little bit of paper at the top can look just as cool. So that's that. And then the very last thing that I'm going to do, I had this left over as well from the box. So I'm going to pop those to one side. I'm just so pleased with how those have come out. And no, I'm not going to do any more sewing or anything on them. I just think that they work well as is. So I'm going to make this into a little folder. And to make sure it sits a little bit better, I'm just going to knock the camera terribly apparently, but also just put some of the bulk out of here. Make it almost like a little envelope. I want it to be a pouch that I can put ephemera in. And this is going to be really sturdy, and it's going to be super quick to make because I'm not really going to embellish it. I think that the artwork is beautiful as it is. So here goes. And I think the only thing I'm going to do, just to keep the theme running of the stars, is put a little bit of this down here over the closure, but I actually want it to run the whole length. So I'm going to chop a little bit more off here, tear a little bit more off, and just have a little look-see. Just look at the positioning there. I think that's going to work very nicely. So let's just get this all glued up. I'm just going to overlap it a little bit, just to keep the glue more solidly in place. But it's just, this isn't going to be seen. This is just a little bit of a precaution in terms of keeping the glue where it needs to be. Okay. I'm just going to trim that off the top. I feel like we need one more thing here, but I don't think it needs to be much. Just a little ticket, I think, something of that nature. Okay, in addition to these two things, this is what we've ended up with. This is what I went with in the end. I've got two little tabs to add onto some specimen cards at some point. I've got these three really cute and really cool Egyptian tags. These are all inspired by the colouring of the branding, and in the end this is what I went with for the pocket. So just a little touch here. It's quite sturdy. I'll be able to fill it very easily with my ephemera. And I don't think we can say fairer than that. For all the cardboard we had and everything we got out of it, we haven't done badly at all. So I hope this has been inspiring. I hope it's given you a few ideas of some things you can use around your home. And I'd love to hear anything in the comments about what you would have done with the same amount of cardboard or the same structure. Any ideas that maybe I missed. I'm sure there were many. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe so you can catch all my other videos, and leave a comment. I always love to hear from you, and I hope it's been inspiring. See you next time.